Woody Allen had famously remarked that everything we do in life is a distraction from the ultimate reality of death. It is but an accident that we happen to be on earth, enjoying our silly little moments, distracting ourselves as often as possible, so we don't have to really face up to the fact that everything we value in life will eventually be gone. Sad, but profoundly true. Does filmmaker Shoojit Sircar possibly have a similar philosophy, which he communicates through his deceptively profound, bittersweet tales on screen? This is our humble take on the films of Shoojit Sircar and an attempt in understanding his philosophy brought to life through his films. Before we move on to explore Shoojit's cinema, please share and subscribe to our channel to keep us going and hit the bell icon to receive more video notifications. In his latest film Gulabo Sitabo, Shoojit Sircar tells a story of two men constantly fighting over a crumbling mansion. Amitabh Bachchan plays Mirza in a standout performance, trying to be the legal owner of the Haveli which his wife inherits. Mirza does everything within his reach to seize the Fatima Mahal, on top of his constant prayers for the death of his Begum. He married the much older Begum for this very reason, and it has been his sole obsession in life. However, Mirza has no clue about the valuation of the Haveli, nor does he know how to use the money once he manages to get it. It is of course the fascination of owning a lump sum amount which keeps him going in his otherwise barren life. This obsession-driven characterization of the protagonist is a common thread in Shoojit's films. In Shoojit Amitabh's previous cooperation in Piku, where the superstar played an equally eccentric man, preoccupied about his health and bowel movements, we observe the same obsession.
Look, Piku, मेरा problem कोई छोटा नहीं है. When you will be my age, you will understand.
आपकी ऐसा को मैं पहुंचना ही नहीं चाहती. कभी यहाँ प्रॉब्लम, कभी वहाँ प्रॉब्लम, कभी यहाँ दर्द. Imaginary.
Imaginary.
In Gulabo Sitabo, Mirza steals and sells bulbs from his tenants, forges signatures from his wife. In Piku, Bhaskar doesn't want his daughter to get married in fear of losing his health custodian. Both characters are selfish and not entirely sure how to act otherwise. However, what makes them likable is that they are upfront about it. In Piku, when the neighbor lady asks about the missing driver to Bhaskar, he says, "Hum kanjoos hain, we are miserly people," quite unabashedly. Similarly, in Gulabo Sitabo, when the street puppeteer mentions Mirza as "Ye to bahut lalchi hai," he is very greedy, Amitabh retorts, "Haan, hai hum lalchi. Yes, I am greedy." This non-pretentiousness of the protagonists makes them relatable and thus likable in spite of their inherent flaws. What makes this interesting is the fact that both the characters played by Big B are contrasted by their matches in the two films, one in love and one in hate. Ayushmann Khurrana as the dodging tenant Bake is a hurdle for Mirza at every step in trying to protect the rights and the roof of the Haveli tenants. He pays a meager 30 rupees for the room he occupies with his family, that too in reluctance and with irregularity. The satisfaction of not paying the due, always countering Mirza in all disgust, perhaps gets Bake going as well in his colorless life. Deepika Padukone as Piku is a daughter who ignores her own needs in caring for his father. Always surfacing above Bhaskar's tantrums and freakiness, it's not an obligation of responsibility, but genuine love which keeps Piku going, but definitely deprived of enough time to discover herself. It might also make you think whether Bhaskar needs Piku or Piku needs Bhaskar more. Writer Juhi Chaturvedi, Sarkar's regular collaborator, pens the narrative and paints these characters in such a way that the entire film serves to be a red herring. We enjoy the transactions of passion, angst, emotions of the characters trying to hold on to their obsession, but the actual point is probably about the futility of all of it. Shoojit, through his films, urges to take life more casually and enjoy the moments as they come. Without preaching this argument head-on, he makes a mockery of the counter-argument, thus advocating his point. In fact, in both the mentioned films, we have characters that subtly promote the idea of uncertainty of life and futility of holding on to things. Farooq Jafar is a revelation in Gulabo Sitabo as Fatima Begum. She doesn't even remember well whom exactly she eloped with years back. Without investing much in the future, she lives by the day, drinking life to the core as the film's surreal climax suggests. Moushumi Chatterjee in Piku is a similar character. She persists Piku to take a break. Relaxation to chahiye na life mein. In life, we need relaxation, she urges. Of course, we also have the evergreen Irfan as Rana Chaudhary in Piku. Rana faces similar transactional conflicts back home and is caught between the father-daughter idiosyncrasies. He delivers verbal and non-verbal messages from time to time, emphasizing how to casually treat the inevitable continuum of life. While we do find a close analogy between Piku and Gulabo Sitabo, Shoojit's other films might not be that far away. His first two films were political dramas set against war-torn sides. In his debut film Yahan, Sircar narrates the story of a Kashmiri girl in love with an Indian soldier. Yahan was a story depicting the futility of war in Kashmir, contrasted against courage, love, and the majestic beauty of the valley. Madras Cafe, based on the Rajiv Gandhi assassination story, was essentially about an Indian intelligence officer obsessed in getting into the roots of the Sri Lankan crisis, trying to save the life of India's ex-PM. He loses everything in life in his pursuit for truth and eventually fails in saving the ex-PM as well. Once the mission is over, he loses all focus in life, still pondering over how could he have saved the PM. Madras Cafe also illustrates characters based on real-life heroes, rebels and politicians. Worshipped by their followers, these are mighty men, stronger than anyone around, but ultimately succumbing to someone more powerful and eventually fading out of memory. Sircar establishes how momentary all power equations are in both of these underrated political dramas. His approach is more direct than traditional in these earlier works, but since Madras Cafe, he adopts the aforementioned subtle tone, which works better and reaches the audience far more effortlessly. Shoojit has worked with mainstream stars. However, you never see the stars in the movies. All you see is the characters. It's the characterization and the conviction of his filmmaking which makes all the characters come to life. When the end credits roll, you empathize with Mirza. You relate with Piku. You forget the stars, you remember the persons they played. You will also have to give it to him for presenting us with superwoman characters in film after film. These ladies are feminist statements as bold as anything else we find in Indian cinema today, and yet they are not on your face. However, it isn't only about the central characters like Piku, Fatima Begum, Ada from Yahan or Ashima from Vicky Dona. Remember Dolly Aluwali as Dadi in Yahan and the gutsy mother in Vicky Dona. Think about the brilliant Shrishti Srivastav as Baki's sister, Guddu, in Gulabo Sitabo. Also think about the middle sister in the same film who always tells the truth, and remember the grandmother in Vicky Dona. Vicky's grandmother is more liberal than his mother, holding her cool during a theft at home, casually drinking liquor with her daughter-in-law every evening, and the first person to propose an adoption to Vicky and Ashima.
की गल है डॉली आज चढ़ ही नहीं रही तूने पानी ज्यादा डाल दिया
तुसी स्लोली पी रहे हो ऐस करके चढ़ नहीं रही वैसे मैं भी अभी हाई नहीं हुई हूँ
Life को थोड़ा lightly लिया कर. Take life a little lightly, she says, thus resonating what Rana and Chobi Mashi would suggest once again few years later in Piku. क्या लेके आए हो जग में क्या लेके जाएगा and 2 दिन का है ये मेला खेला फिर उठ जाना है are two songs which play in Gulabo Sitabo, propagating the same theme rhetorically. Songs which could have fitted in any of Sircar's movies. Shoojit Sircar's Bengali roots are also distinctly evident and available in most of his films, and he doesn't shy away from teasing the so-called cerebral high-headedness of Bengali nostalgia. Everything isn't copyrighted to Bengalis, Irfan pokes in Piku, and who can forget the Bengali-Punjabi cultural clash in Vicky Donor, culminating into the rum whiskey comedy set piece. This capability of self-mockery is a unique feat and in a way an extension of the philosophy of his films. In spite of all precautions and care, Bhaskar passes away the day after he had his most satisfying bowel motion. None of the schemes of Mirza or Baqi stand against the whimsical move of Fatima Begum. And Vicky Donor, the man behind childbirth in so many families, learns that his own wife cannot conceive. Facing the unpredictability of life has always been the climax in all of these films. But in October, just about 15 minutes into the film, when Shuli, the brightest and the most charming person around, has this severe accident in a matter of seconds, the audience is caught unprepared and in absolute shock. The beauty of it all lies in the way the accident happens. As with everything else in Shoojit's films, this intense situation is also treated as a matter of fact. No slow motion, no jump cuts, no drama. As in life, it simply happens. It takes monumental courage to deliver the most intense part of the movie in the first 15 minutes and then deal with the consequence of it for the rest of the film. Which other Bollywood movie in the last 2 decades has done that apart from October? October is perhaps Shoojit's finest film. It feels like a poetry on screen that does everything in its power to rescue beauty from pain. Sircar's philosophy, embodied in this bravest filmmaking, turns this coming-of-age film into a class of its own. A film thriving around the agonizing uncertainty of life once again, but it deals more with coping up with the consequences rather than the build-up to the crisis. Varun Dhawan gives an out-of-skin performance as Dan, an intern in the hospitality industry with no clue on what he wants and where he belongs. Dan perhaps sticks onto this tragedy looking for a purpose of his own, trying to make some meaning of his self-existence. Shuli mentioning his name just before her accident is too trivial a latch to justify his obsession with this tragedy. But that mention might be of most importance to Dan, that he has perceived about himself after long.
मैडम जरा पैर ऊपर कर लीजिए, पोछा मारना है। अंकल जी जरा पैर ऊपर कर लीजिए, उनको भी बोल लीजिए पैर ऊपर कीजिए।
Watch out for Varun requesting visitors in the hospital to lift their feet during the routine housekeeping. It is him advocating a cause, a service otherwise trivialized or ignored as he feels himself in life. Dan just can't come to terms with Shuli's tragedy, accepting that someone whom he used to look up to needs to be looked after for all her life now. He is overwhelmed how everyone else gradually moves on with their lives and Shuli continues in coma. It feels Sircar is pondering over his own philosophy here, unlearning and learning back his own skills. Maybe it's not only about being casual or moving on. It's about clenching to the wonderful movements that life gives one from time to time and enjoying them to the core. It's about Bhaskhar's cycle ride in Piku. It's about Mirza having his roadside snacks. It's about Vicky and Ashima singing on the terrace. And it's about Shuli calling out Dan's name in the park. It is also about Shuli's mother asking her son to go for his tuitions after her daughter's death, and the maid who left her job, unable to bear Bhaskhar's outburst, returning for work once the old man is dead. Life goes on. As expressed in Sean Penn's Into the Wild, Shoojit Sircar movies are about holding on to the journey of life and be casual about the destinations. And as Coen brothers reaffirm the same in most of their films using black comedy. Shoojit uses soothing sense melancholia to hit the message home. You will find his characters contemplating on this journey in the end scenes, mostly in acceptance. What else can you do in life but to accept? The stage remains, the chairs move, and the characters change.